Unmasked, Episode 7, When It Becomes Physical. There's a line that should never be crossed. No matter how bad an argument gets, no matter how angry someone is, no matter what's being said, physical abuse is never an option. It's not a mistake, it's not a loss of control, and it's not something that just happens in the heat of the moment. It's a choice, and once that line is crossed, everything changes. Because this isn't just about arguments anymore. It's not about communication or conflict or two people struggling to get along. It becomes something else entirely. It becomes about power, about control, about one person deciding they have the right to physically overpower the other. And for me, it wasn't a one-time thing. It wasn't one moment that I could isolate, explain away, or convince myself would never happen again. It was repeated. It was a pattern. It was something that happened in different ways, over time, in moments where I was already vulnerable, already trying to de-escalate, already trying to keep things calm. There was strangulation. And that's something people don't always fully understand the seriousness of. Strangulation isn't just another form of physical aggression, it's one of the most dangerous indicators of escalation. It shows a level of control that goes beyond anger. It's someone putting their hands around your neck, controlling your ability to breathe, controlling something as basic and essential as air. It's not just physical harm, it's a message. It says, I have control over your life. And when that happens, it changes the way you feel in a way that's hard to explain. Because it's not just fear in that moment, it stays with you. It affects how you feel around them afterwards. It affects your sense of safety, your sense of control, your sense of whether you're even safe in the same space as them. And it wasn't just that. There was biting, headbutting, kicking, punching doors, kicking cupboards, pinning me down so I couldn't move, using objects in ways that were meant to intimidate, to hurt, to assert control. Even something like a gym roller being used against my face. And when you list those things out, it's clear. This wasn't an isolated incident. This wasn't a one-off loss of control. This was repeated behavior. And repeated behavior is a pattern. And patterns like that aren't about emotion. They're about control. I used to ask him something over and over again. I would say, "Does this make you feel like a man?" Because I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand how someone could do that to another person, especially someone they claimed to care about. And every time it was dismissed. It was either turned back onto me, blamed on me, or completely minimized. Sometimes it was laughed off. Sometimes it was ignored. Sometimes it was met with complete indifference. And that lack of empathy, that lack of remorse, that absence of any real accountability is one of the most telling parts. Because it's not just about the action itself. It's about the response afterwards. When someone hurts you, genuinely hurts you, and they have empathy, you see it. You feel it. There is recognition, there is accountability, there's some form of understanding of what they've done. But when that's missing, when there's no remorse, no genuine apology, no recognition of the harm caused, it tells you something deeper. It tells you that your pain doesn't register in the way it should. It tells you that what you're experiencing isn't being seen as something serious. And that's dangerous, because it means there's nothing stopping it from happening again. And it did happen again, and again, and again. And that's the part that's important to understand. Physical abuse, especially when it's repeated, isn't about losing control. It's about having control and choosing to use it in a harmful way. And when you're in that situation, it changes you. It changes how you move, how you react, how you exist in your own space. You become hyper-aware. You start anticipating behavior, trying to read situations before they escalate, trying to avoid anything that might trigger it. You shrink yourself, you adjust yourself. You do everything you can to prevent something that was never yours to control in the first place. And over time, that takes a toll. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Because living in that environment means you're never fully at ease. You're never fully safe. Even in moments where nothing is happening, there's always that underlying awareness that it could. And that's not something anyone should ever have to live with. No argument justifies it, no situation excuses it, and no explanation makes it acceptable. And the moment it becomes physical, the relationship is no longer equal. It becomes something else entirely. Looking back, one of the hardest things to accept was that it wasn't going to stop. Because I kept thinking it would. I kept thinking there would be a moment of realization, a moment of accountability, a moment where it would be understood how serious it was. But that moment never came. Because the absence of empathy meant there was no reason for it to. And that's the reality of it. When someone shows you a pattern like that, when it repeats, when it escalates, when it's dismissed or minimized, you have to see it for what it is. Not a mistake, not a one-off, but a clear pattern of control. And once you see that clearly, it becomes harder to ignore. This is Unmasked, and this is the reality of when control turns physical.